Now, the crime and punishment season continues on BBC Two. Bringing together convicted rapists and women who have been raped has proved to be a successful form of therapy in America. 40 Minutes, with the help of a British rape survivor, looks at her meeting with a man convicted of rape. The programme contains graphic descriptions of rape and sexual fantasy, which some viewers may find disturbing.
Grendon Underwood Prison, Buckinghamshire. As a clinical psychologist, my interest lies in the work being done on G-Wing, the sex offenders wing, particularly with Paul, serving a double life sentence for the rape of 2 women.
What we're going to do in psychotherapy is see how your life experience and your effects are related.
Rapists like Paul often have great difficulty in understanding the effect they had on their victims. This film tries to reconcile the experience of being raped with that of being a rapist by bringing the abuser and the abused together. There's an increasing belief that this can be beneficial to both parties. Until this film, no British rape victim had met with a rapist as part of his therapy.
I think it would be very important for you to tell me about your first offence, if you can.
I can't remember the actual first time I went out and exposed myself. There was a lot of them. I suppose I was just frustrated. I wanted some sort of sexual experience, and I didn't know how to go about it the conventional way. And I chose to go that way.
I wonder how that idea came to your mind.
I don't know, I felt threatened. I just couldn't try and chat a woman up. I don't know why. Well, I've got a few more ideas why. I felt threatened and scared, and I'd look stupid. I've been asked, didn't expose yourself, did you find it embarrassing? And I think it was less embarrassing doing it that way, and if I'd have gone out with a girl and it had come down to sex and I'd have been laughed at, that would have been far more embarrassing or whatever, far more of an experience.
What do you think led you to go from that to planning rape?
I'd say I'd lost my virginity sort of legitimately before I raped. But I suppose I'd thought about rape before I did actually lose my virginity, and I think I would have raped before I did if the circumstances would have been right when I was indecently assaulting someone. I think my ultimate aim was to rape.
Sex offenders are no longer just locked up and forgotten. All must now undergo psychological treatment. As a clinical psychologist who studied the causes of violence, I believe that rape is often caused by the way the rapist was treated as a child. Understanding the long-forgotten traumas of his past can help the rapist to become a non-rapist. That's something Grendon Underwood's been doing for 25 years. Paul is unable to show his aggression when he feels it, the suppressed anger only finding expression later in perverted forms. These are the classic symptoms of a passive-aggressive personality.
No doubt the aggression is there, but it doesn't display it. Certainly in our domestic life on the wing, I've never witnessed any of the aggression. And certainly on the exercise, when I've seen him playing football, where I quite often consider it a football pitch, somewhere to get rid of some aggression, he tends to be the calming influence around them. So there's no display of any violent aggression even on a football pitch. He's very much the pacifier.
Have you ever lost your temper?
Not really, no. I mean, sometimes I've raised my voice a little bit, but I've never let go at someone, no. I've never been able to express aggression or anything to anybody, even if I knew someone had, no matter who they were, had done something wrong, like taken something of mine or anything like that. Don't worry about it. Shut up. Crying on. You've got a long way to go, but it'll come. It's not too heavy. It's not too heavy. It's been worth it in the end. It's all worth it in the end. You're alright. No, you don't. Come see us all. Come and sit down. Come on. Come on.
The therapy objective is self-knowledge. Here on G-Wing, the inmates have committed serious crimes: rape, molestation, murder. Many have never shown remorse, but as therapy progresses, for some, the results are devastating.
There's things that I've done and never mentioned, you know, I just can't.
You can't. No one's pressuring you. You'll feel ready one day. There's no one sort of saying you've got to do it now. You've got to come out with everything. Take it one step at a time. When you feel comfortable, and believe you me, you will. You'll see people on the group talking about all sorts of horrific things, you know what I mean? You'll be able to do it, man. You will.
Jane is one of an increasing number of women who have been raped. While Paul is not her rapist, she believes meeting him could be beneficial.
I was out looking for a victim. I wanted to rape somebody. She was the first sort of female I seen on her own. And as she reached me, I asked her directions for somewhere. She said she didn't know, and as she turned to leave, I grabbed hold of her behind, hand over her mouth, and pulled her into the churchyard.
9 years ago this year, I was raped in this house at 2 o'clock in the morning by a stranger. Since that time, many things have happened, but it's only been the last year, in particular since April this year, I've actually been able to speak about it with a group of both men and women. Prior to that, it was an absolute impossibility for me to even talk about how I actually felt.
She struggled, started to, and I hit her across the face with the back of my hand. She kept quiet then.
I can remember things like, within the first 2 years of the rape, I actually put on over 2.5 stone in weight. And I was very aware of my body growing, but I actually didn't want to even look at it.
Dragged her down the alleyway. Got her onto the floor. She had jeans on her. Took her jeans, panties off. Took my own trousers down. Got on top of her and raped her.
I have a knife wound from where the 10-inch blade cut through my hand. And again, for a very long time, I pretended it wasn't there. And I wouldn't even look for it because I knew that if I looked for it, it would bring back the memory of that night.
As I was about to ejaculate, I asked her if she was on the pill. She said she wasn't. I ejaculated inside her.
The fear, the absolute fear, which went right down to my toes and all the way back up to my head again, was there. A fear, a panic, a sheer living nightmare that I have found over the years very, very difficult to try to even put into words. As I talk now, I can actually feel my stomach beginning to tighten. Things have moved on. For a long time, if I went through certain parts of London, I became very scared. And the reason was, it was the same route that the police car had taken me the morning of the rape.
Did they catch the man who raped you?
No, they didn't. He left at 6 in the morning.
And how would you feel if you met a man like that again?
A rapist. I'm sure I meet rapists every single day of my life.
Rape is a crime on the increase. Over the past 2 years, reported rape has risen by nearly 20%. In America, fellow psychologists encourage rape mediation, a therapy that often lays to rest the horrific memory of their rapist for women who've been raped. At my request, Jane agreed to meet Paul, with the understanding that she could at any time stop the meeting.
Thank you.
It's just up here on the desk. Right. This is Paul. Do you want to say anything to him?
No, you stop.
Oh, do you want to say anything to him?
What can I say? I don't know. One thing I hope to get from this is a better understanding of what effect I had on my victims. I'll never be able to fully understand that.
The effect is such that as a rapist, your action must really take a few minutes, maybe a few hours. And for me, it's taken many years of absolute pain and damnation, of an inability to be able to even leave my house, of an inability to even begin to explain to people very close to me exactly what happened that night, of anger which was so deep, of the fact that I hated and detested my body. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want anybody else to touch it for that matter. I spent at least 2 or 3 years with clothes which were very, I would think, large fitting, so you couldn't see my figure. I didn't buy any lingerie of any, I would think, overtly sexual nature for many, many years. So the effect of rape is that it affects every minute of your life. And it's the act of violence of a man over a woman.
Yeah.
I'm here now. I mean, I could not have even contemplated coming to face a man who'd raped even 7 or 8 months ago. Have you ever had a 10 HBA put at your throat
No,
for 4 hours?
no,
Would you like it?
no.
Fine.
Pardon?
Then that's fine. You wouldn't like it done to you?
No, I certainly wouldn't. I don't know if I still hate myself for what I've done. I hate what I've done. But I'm trying not to hate myself because that's negative. And it breeds, for me anyway, it breeds negative actions. I went out, I couldn't handle a lot of different situations. I was a very weak person. And yeah, I didn't consider anybody else. It was me and no one else mattered.
In one respect, you have it very easy here. You have time to reflect on what you've done.
Yeah.
We who've been raped don't want to. All we want to do is run away from it, but we can't because it's there. In our every waking moment, it's very deeply pushed down. It is so painful.
Yeah.
And then we'll get, you asked for it. I didn't ask for it. I was asleep in my own bed, in my own house.
Yeah, I've never ever considered anybody else before.
You never considered any woman before.
So, well, yeah, never a woman before, I should say. Never thought about any of the consequences.
Did Did you just tell Paul what happened very briefly?
Yes, I was asleep in my bed and it was 2 in the morning and I heard a movement downstairs. And I realised, I'm a very light sleeper, that initially I thought it was a friend who was staying with me in the back bedroom. And I realised it wasn't, and this padding of feet came up the stairs and the guy just sat on my bed and started talking to me about, I can't really remember, there's some really bizarre conversation about the car, and there is no book of etiquette that says what you do when a rapist enters your room. You don't actually get up and say, "Excuse me, can you leave?" And I thought, I'm going to have to get him downstairs. And I went to move, he thrust his whole body across mine, and with it a 10-inch blade came soaring through the air. He went for my throat, I put my hand up, and it ripped my hand, went for my jugular. And at that point, I thought I was going to die, and this little voice just said to me, "You're not going to." I don't quite know how I do it, but I managed to knock the blade flying across the bedroom. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't move. I had done nothing. I didn't know this man.
Did you use a knife, Paul?
No.
But what's hearing that story?
On a previous conviction for indecent assault, used a knife. It was there for the threat.
Are you not curious to ask him why he used a knife?
No.
What do you thought he was doing?
I don't want to ask him why he used a knife.
No.
And also you interrupted me.
Oh, sorry, I did, yes, but...
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You asked me to describe what happened that night and you interrupted me.
Yeah, I did.
Okay? Basically what then happened was, I don't know how long, but after a while we went downstairs and we went into the kitchen, and this guy was operating between someone who's very much like my brother. You know, take care, are you cold, would you like to put your dressing gown on, do you want a cup of tea? And the next minute he was beating the shit out of me, he was putting on some leather gloves and I could be there. And we got down into the kitchen and he went to open up the back door. As he turned around, his penis was hanging out. Well, I could do nothing, so I was raped. And I can remember feeling so filthy, so dirty, and thinking, I have got to get up. And I was shaking, and I didn't know how I was going to stand. I remember getting dressed, and I remember he distinctly going up and washing his penis. And then we went back upstairs again, and there was this saga about being a sister. Was I right? And he left. Subsequently, 2 days later, which I think is another thing that to do with the initial part of the rape, was I had to go to hospital to be checked out, and I had both syphilis and gonorrhea, and there's a possibility I was pregnant, and he totally lacerated my vagina. And I was taken with a very close friend to the hospital, and as I got into the reception area of the clinic, this receptionist had me misinformed. And she started saying, "What is your name? What is your age?" And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't want to be here. I have done nothing wrong. Why am I here? And I actually remember physically just stripping her desk, saying, I refuse to give you my name. I don't want to be here. I have done nothing. And it was at that point, 2 days later, when the reality hit me. She was going to be with me. And then, as they had to give me a very complex examination, you then have a 4-page questionnaire to fill in, which is like, was it anal rape? Did they use a foreign implement? So basically, for an hour, I had to relive the rape all over again. And that's just the initial part of it. And coming back, and then not wanting to take the tablets, and what would happen if I was pregnant. And getting back into the house. And having to be examined by a male doctor. And I think one of the most interesting things was that there was a comedy of errors the actual morning of the rape once the police had arrived. But after I'd been examined by a brilliant female police agent, I just said, "Do you believe me?" And I think now part of it was to say, hoping that she would actually say no, it didn't happen. It was just a dream. It wasn't a dream.
I just asked Paul what have you been thinking?
I've put at least 2 people through this sort of I don't know.
What were your thoughts? What were you actually thinking while she was telling you the story?
I thought of my own victims. Putting them through hell. And they're still living at hell. There's nothing I can say that nothing's going to make it any different. It's always going to be the same.
Okay. Next. So far, there is no rape mediation service, but a scheme may soon be in operation.
I feel much happier. I feel very grounded.
Happier than
Before?
before the meeting at the prison? Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think because I just feel everything feels much more integrated. And
What particular pennies have dropped, do you think, as a result of the meeting?
I think I was able to, not to confront, but to meet a convicted rapist, and you realise that quite honestly they're absolutely nothing. It's only this year I've actually made myself remember the day it happened. I'm scarred on my hand, and I for years pretended my scar wasn't there because I knew if I looked at the scar it meant that it was a physical remembrance of what happened. And to even now, to begin to put it into words, to even cry about it, without knowing that if I started crying I wouldn't stop because the pain was so deep. And I'm yelling at my partner when he'd say, like, if I ever see that guy who raped you, I will kill him. And I used to get so angry when I say, that is not your role. You have no right to take my anger away from me. You have your anger, I have mine. And it goes on in an ever-decreasing circle. It's a bit like peeling an onion. I started with very little bit, and it'll go on for many years.
Jane is able to go deep into her past experience and examine her trauma, but Paul will need to face up to some of his earlier experiences if he's to advance in his therapy. It's puzzled me why you haven't talked about the experience you told me about when you were 12, at that point in the therapy.
Because I don't want to.
It must be relevant, don't you think?
I don't know.
Can you just say what happened?
Not really.
But, you know, it's quite important for your therapy, it's quite important for understanding how you became a rapist.
Possibly.
Possibly?
Possibly. I don't. Well, at this time, at the moment in time, I don't think it was.
Okay, let's try and judge it, okay? I'll tell you what you told me, and you tell me it wasn't important, okay? Which is that you were in bed, drowned at your friend's house, and an older woman than you got into your bed when you were aged 12, before you'd come into puberty, and masturbated you.
Yeah. There was nothing to it. It was just she took all of my penis and started masturbating me. Started playing with my prick.
And you hadn't come into puberty.
No.
So what did you think was happening?
I don't know, I knew bits and bobs about, you know, I suppose I played with myself anyway, before that. I don't know, I was just feeling totally helpless and confused what's happening, what's going on. But also at the same time, it was alright. It's, I don't know.
Feeling helpless is what your victims must have felt.
I should think so, definitely.
What about specifically the point about satisfying the woman and whether she was satisfied? Do you think she was satisfied by what happened? What do you think she expected from it?
I've no idea. I've blanked that out for years as well anyway.
You blanked it out?
Yeah.
Why do you think you blanked it out?
I don't know. I didn't see it as having any significance, and it wasn't important, and it was embarrassing. And
You don't blank something out that isn't important, and it's
no,
embarrassing.
I don't know.
Is that the only time it happened?
Yeah.
You're sure?
100% positive.
You're sure you couldn't have blanked anything else out?
As far as I know, I haven't blanked
Yeah.
anything else out. Well, yeah, I'm sure it was only on that one occasion.
Yeah. Do you think by talking about it that you're going to be helped, perhaps, to understand how you came to be a rapist? I mean, I think that
Yeah.
it's quite clear that you felt rejected, and it's quite clear to me that you felt rejected and let down by your mother constantly leaving you all over the place, even though you say
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
And it's also clear to me that you did feel that your mother and your elder sister were quite dominant people in your life. They were quite, you felt quite in their shadow, and they were controlling you to a certain extent, which would you'd understand something about your attitude to women from that. If you add to that the fact that you were sexually abused at the age of 12.
I don't consider it as sexual abuse or anything. It just happened. It wasn't, I don't know.
Whose benefit was it for?
It certainly wasn't mine.
What do you mean?
I don't know.
Who initiated it?
It wasn't me.
Who was satisfied by it?
I don't know if anybody was.
So why can't you see that that's an abuse?
Yeah. I don't know, I just find it difficult talking about it.
Okay.
I say...
Okay. We're going.
Should we go to the wing? You got the key card?
What do you think about that?
I just think he's shamming.
You think he's lying?
I think in all the therapy I've seen him do, and even in that bit, he spends most of his time saying he doesn't know.
Yeah.
And not even attempting to actually get in touch with his feelings. He just skids around and he's like a piece of wallpaper, and he will say what you want him to say. You were feeding him about his emotions and how he felt.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing about how he felt.
But if that did happen to him, and he was made to feel helpless,
What was he?
might that not, but supposing it was true, then might that not help us understand something of why he behaved as he did?
You could say how many women as children have been abused by their fathers.
Yeah.
And they don't go out and rape.
No, they turn it against themselves and become depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And something about men that's different.
Mm-hmm.
Men who have been sexually abused typically relive the experience, but change it into a fantasy in which this time they're the boss.
So what sort of scenes do you fantasize then?
It'd be the same scene in the bed. She'd touch me, I'd be a lot bigger. And she'd masturbate me. I'd fondle her breasts. And well, basically get on top and have sex. I mean, as well as that's what all my idea of sex was then anyway. Was a man getting on top of a woman and doing it. That was...
Therapy is made up of months of self-analysis. It is becoming clear to his prison psychiatrist that Paul developed a complex about the size of his penis.
If I'd gone out with a girl and it'd come down to sex, I'd have got laughed at. We'd gone round to his girlfriend's house, and her mate was there, and we ended up in a bedroom together, and I remember her trying to undo my trousers, and I wouldn't let her. She kept knocking her away.
She tried to undo the trousers. And how old were you then?
15 or 16.
And you wouldn't let her?
No.
And the reason why you wouldn't let her was what?
Because I thought she'd laughed at me.
What you're describing is an extreme preoccupation with the smallness of your penis.
Oh, and it, even after it developed, I mean, I kept that for years.
I have no empathy for this guy, this guy I've met. All I know is that I can empathise with the women who he raped, whose lives he's devastated. And however much on one level I can be intelligent, I can be intellectual about the fact I believe as a society that if we are going to move forward into a much more caring society, then society needs to know why men rape. I might also say to you, as I said to you once before, how many thousands of pounds is being spent on this convicted rapist? He has raped. That is not going to absolve what he's done to those two women.
As she got close, I'd jump out, or step out, or whatever, and I'd even grab her arm or something, and say, you know, look at this, and what do you think of this, and touch it, and things like that.
Having sought the admiration of women by showing his member to them, flashing, and being disappointed by the reaction, Paul moved on to actual indecent assault and eventually rape.
I don't know, I think I wanted to humiliate them in my fantasy.
Humiliate?
Yeah. I mean, but it'd usually be, I'd see, you know, suck my cock or something, and she'd refuse, and I'd slap him and force her to do it, you know, and it was...
Where does that need to humiliate come from?
I don't know. I've been...
I mean...
I've looked at, I've tried to delve into this, and all I can, it just adds to the power buzz, the being in control, and she's at my command, and what I say she does, and just being strong, and all the things that I wasn't, I thought I had to be. Saying that about asking both my victims if they're on the pill, I'd been going with my girlfriend for 6 or 7 months before I got arrested. We'd been having sex fairly regular, and I presume she was on the pill, but I couldn't ask her.
But you were still going out with your girlfriend while
Yeah.
you, at the same time as you raped some people, is that
I
right?
raped my 2 victims while I was going out with my girlfriend.
Brendan at least works, you know, Brendan actually
In your
turns
view?
non-rapists into, rapists into non-rapists.
I totally disagree with you. And you can sit here and tell me in your clinical psychologist way that by going into therapy and that by accessing in a very structured way this guy's emotions, he's going to stop raping. That man will be a rapist for the rest of his life.
Come on, Ethan. Come on, son. Come on, sir. Come on. One more.
I was stood there on the ID and the identity line, like, when she walked in, she had to have a policewoman helping her around because her head was battered. She was, the state she was in, I mean, it's like, I think it was the first time I'd sort of considered anybody else when I'd seen what I'd done to her.
What are you thinking then?
Why? So needless. Of course, so much pain.
He wasn't raped.
Wasn't he?
No.
I mean, he had an experience which I think almost certainly had a big effect on his life.
Once.
Once.
Right.
I'm not saying that these two things are equal. I'm not saying that what was done to you equals what was
Well,
done to
you
him.
did that in the prison. You did your classic statement whereby you were trying to equate what had happened to me with what had happened to the rapist. And I just think it's appalling.
Yeah. But
No, you're still not listening, Oliver. I mean, it was just appalling, and you're still doing this thing again.
Yeah.
I mean, when will you understand that I actually don't care a sweet FA what this guy has done, quite honestly. And it's about time this guy has actually committed 2 appalling rapes. He's destroyed 2 women's lives. Why isn't it about time that this guy has already committed his crime? So what, he's done the act. What I'm more concerned about is women, now, in the future, who are continually going to be raped. This does not help women.
if I described to you a situation in which a prepubescent 12-year-old girl had been masturbated by a 16-year-old boy, what would you say about it?
I am not going to do parallels with if this guy was a woman, what in actual fact would happen, because I think we're just moving away from the whole subject, the fact that men rape, and however unpleasant you think that is, and however painful it is for you as a man, I think it's about time that you really began to do some very hard work. Rape is singular. Rape is a very lonely experience. But the fact is, daily women are raped, whether it be in marriage, be it date rape, be it strange rape, whatever it is. I'm not alone. And if we all joined hands, you'd have a huge lot of people, of women, circling the whole of London. It's happening to thousands of women. And maybe as men, you should take the magnitude of what's happening to us.
But for me to ask you to make the connection between his experience as a victim and
Your
your experience as a victim...
Why don't you, Oliver, make the connection between my experience as a woman and just leave it at that and understand that you're not listening as most men haven't listened, and actually take on board the fact that it's your responsibility, and you go away and you go back to Grenoble and say, right, we're really going to think about this. You maybe go into schools or something and you begin to say, right, we're going to look at male sexuality, what in actual fact are male emotions. You go away, you do that for 10 or 15 years, then maybe come back to me, then maybe start talking to me. But don't turn around and start saying, I have to be reconciled. I am reconciled now with myself as a woman, and I am happy with myself as a woman. And I'm right on what I did that night, and maybe in all the years since. And I don't have to be reconciled with a guy who is basically a leech on society, who is spending his whole time, he has a get out, because for what, half an hour, he was fondled by some woman? I didn't particularly like the film. Maybe because I don't particularly want to hear how a rapist operates, and I think anyone who's been raped really doesn't want to. He can sit there and describe how he's raped 2 women. For him it is so easy, and yet he still has no conception of the absolute emotional devastation that rape causes, not just to the woman who was raped, but to her immediate family and maybe her friends, and to her job and her livelihood. I don't think, having watched a lot of his therapy and going back into his childhood, did it ever established why he raped 2 women. Rapists are shits. They're not nice men. And women who've been raped know that. They're not nice men.